If your job is to install a brush onto a door, then I've got a couple of tips for you. I've already measured mine. So here is the brush. And of course, before you can cut it, you're going to need a few things. If you've got a drop saw, fantastic. Otherwise, miter box and a hacksaw. Measuring tape and a pencil, of course, to measure and mark where you're going to cut. You're going to need a pair of pliers or side cutters in order to cut the actual brush itself. And I like to use a hammer and a fitting packer from a draft I just set, and I'll show you what that's for in just a moment. Now, firstly, what not to do. The thing not to do is to cut the brush, to cut the carrier with the brush inside, and I'll show you why that is. We'll be through it in just a moment. There we go, and it's already happening. When you do this, the brush just comes apart like that, and it keeps coming apart and never stops until all the brush pile has fallen out. So absolutely don't do that. I'm just going to stop the brush pile falling out by cutting it as we should. Okay, with the side cutters or the pliers, and that crimps the end of the steel part that holds the brush together. Okay, so now actually what I'm going to do is measure to length and cut it the length that I want. Remember, cut without the brush in the carrier. There we go. So that's the carrier, cut the length. That's the hard part. But now, we need to put the brush in the carrier. Now, if we read the bottom of the packet where the instructions are, they suggest to you that you snake this around and then push it in hard into the carrier. Now, I don't like that, because what it can do is it can put a flex on the carrier, and then that can make the adhesive fail sooner. Okay, if it's got some pressure on it like that, then the adhesive is not going to have time to bond with the surface of the door properly, and you might find that it fails reasonably soon. So rather than do that, I like to actually crimp the end of the carrier to hold the brush in place. So here's how you do that. Put the brush in, put it to the end. Okay, now we're going to cut this end, and what I'm going to do is just pull it out a little bit, lever it out a little bit, like that, snip it. Okay, so the brush is ever so slightly shorter than the carrier, and here's why. Because the way to keep the brush in the carrier is not to do the snaky thing, but rather to crimp the back of the carrier. And to do that, we're going to use the fitting packer. We're going to put the carrier flat on there, like that, and we're going to get our hammer, and we're going to hammer that corner, the back corner of the carrier, right there. And just give it one good tap, like that. The front of the carrier doesn't have any damage at all, it looks just fine, but the brush doesn't come out. Right, now we have to do the opposite end, the same thing, just hold it flat on the fitting packer, and it just crimps it a little bit. I just need another tap on that one. And that's it. And that brush is never coming out, because what happens is it does tend to come out as it sweeps across, as the door opens and closes. It does tend to try and work the brush out towards the latch side, but this one's never going to come out, and it's nice and straight, which means that the adhesive is going to have maximum bond strength with the door.